Well, welcome everybody to a very soggy Donington Park, but we're all excited to be here because it is the season opener for the BRSCC, their first race event of the season, and what better place to start off the year of racing. A packed schedule over the next couple of days. Today on the Saturday we've got all of the Caterham Roadsport Championships racing with us, also the National Formula Ford Championship, and the Fun Cup Championship gets its 2021 campaign underway with a 4-hour endurance race later on this afternoon. Well, we're going to have a quick chat, I think, then, with our front row men for our first race. It's the Caterham Roadsport Championship that's starting off the proceedings today. And on pole position, we've got Tom Cockerell. Alongside him, Taylor O'Flanagan, two drivers who have both graduated from the Academy Championship. And Tom, if I can just dive under here, can I share your umbrella? Tom, well done. Good effort there in qualifying. Got to be happy with that.
Yeah, really pleased. Not what I expected. I got out front, didn't have any spray, and just kind of drove around.
And in theory, that's how it should go in the race, right? You hold the lead, you don't have any spray, and you disappear into the distance.
Ah, well, that's the dream. Let's see how we get off the grid first, and then get through turn one, no disaster, and then evaluate from there.
Well, either way, it's the ideal way to start the season. It's quite a big jump, isn't it, up from Academy into Roadsports? How are you finding it so far?
Yeah, it's a big jump. The cars, different tyres, Avon's ZZS, which are way better. I think I prefer the older tyre because you can throw it around a bit more. But yeah, getting used to it. Wasn't so good in the dry yesterday, so quite happy it rained, and we'll see where we go.
I think you're the only one here that's happy it rained, but best of luck anyway in the race, Tom. So that's Tom Cockerell lining up on pole. We'll go around the front, shall we, and see if we can have a word with Taylor O'Flanagan, who also graduated from the Academy Championship last season. And Taylor, we'll go around this way, I think. That way he doesn't have to move his umbrella, because I don't think he wants to get too soggy here, although I think we're in for a soggy weekend in general, aren't we, Taylor?
I think so. It's been pretty wet so far, and I think it's going to continue for the rest of the day, for sure.
Are you a driver that likes the rain? I was just chatting to Tom. He said he's actually quite happy it's wet today. What about you?
Yeah, it makes it good fun. It makes it an extra challenge, and yeah, we're out with a very quick bunch today, so it's going to be good fun, good challenging race.
Quite important to stay out front though, isn't it? You've got more visibility, less pressure, and in these conditions you want your life to be as easy as possible.
Absolutely, I'll be doing my best to stay at the front.
Best of luck, we're going to enjoy watching you then. Taylor will line up second on the grid with Tom Cockerell on the pole position. Now though, over to Scott to talk you through the race.
Welcome along everybody to the first race meeting of the season for the British Racing and Sports Car Club 2021. It's the Caterham Fun Cup race weekend at a rather damp Donington Park here in Leicestershire. Scott Woodwiss and Andy McEwan in the commentary box for the weekend. Andy, finally nice to be back racing. It's been quite a long winter, 6 months since we last held a BRSCC race meeting, but finally, despite the weather, we're getting back underway and in the best possible fashion with the first race lining up already. This is going to be quite a special weekend to kick things off.
Yeah, by delaying the start of the season slightly till practically the middle of May, that would guarantee us some good weather, but we should know better than to expect sunshine in May in the UK. What we have got, though, is one of the best racetracks in the country, in my opinion, for good, close racing, and it's a circuit that's perfectly suited, really, for the kind of cars that we've got racing with us today. We've got all of the Caterham Motorsport Championships here, with the Roadsports Championship heading out first. They are ideally suited to Donington Park's high-speed, sweeping layout. We've also got the National Formula Ford Championship with its season opener today, and later on this afternoon the opening round of the Fun Cup Endurance Championship, a 4-hour race to start the season off, and that is set to be an absolute thriller. So yeah, I think we've got a brilliant circuit, some great grids, and hopefully some really competitive racing coming despite the weather.
Well, that's certainly the hope, and of course coming up for this first race, the Caterham Roadsport Championship, we've had quite adverse weather conditions all morning, but with qualifying, had a couple of interruptions, but thankfully racing is going to get underway. So the cars are already in position. They're going to be heading off onto their green flag lap very shortly. So the Caterham Roadsport Championship, for those who are new to Caterham racing, at least the Caterham Motorsport Factory Prepared Championships, this is for drivers in their second season of motorsport, because they've only raced for one full season last year in the Academy. They raced separately originally in their own allocated groups, which is green and white, but now this is the first chance they properly get, and in terms of a championship aspect, to race against each other. And what's quite intriguing, quite exciting, is that we've got both the Academy champions lining up on the front row of the grid. I think the sprint down towards Redgate Corner is going to be a little bit spicy with that.
Yeah, I've just been down in the holding area actually chatting to both of those two drivers, Tom Cockerell on pole position, Taylor O'Flanagan alongside him, and Tom said he's actually really looking forward to this race. He enjoys the wet conditions. He went well in qualifying, nearly a full second quicker than anybody else in qualifying was Tom Cockerell. Taylor was a little less sure, and although he's clearly on the pace, he's qualified on the front row, they both, I think, are very keen to get into that first corner first, because visibility, as much as grip levels, are going to be a real challenge today. As soon as you get up to any sort of speed out there, it's just going to be a big ball of spray, almost impossible to see where you're going unless you're the first car in line. So you're absolutely right. We've got all of the ingredients here for a really fierce first corner battle between those two.
Certainly so. And as they head around onto the grid for the opening race, I think I'll be able to give you the grid in terms of how they line up. I think I was looking at another Caterham Championship grid. Here we go. So the first grid of the season lines up as follows, and it is those two Academy champions from last year on the front row. Car 59, Tom Cockrell, starts on pole position with number 11, Taylor O'Flanagan, alongside him. Row 2, two more familiar names from the front runners in the Caterham Academy Championship. 22, Hugo Bush, and 25, Dominique Mansberger. Then it's the Row 3 for number 42, Christopher Broom, and number 97, Gwyn Jones, who won a race last year, so he'll be looking to try and build on that in these slightly upgraded cars. Nick Timpson then comes next on Row 4, alongside the number 3 of Sam Gibbons. Rounding out the top 10 is Adam West in car number 93, and then 98, which is James Hall. Chris Griffith then comes next on the 6th row of the grid on car number 20. Alongside him is Steve Lancaster. Ron Mounsey and Ryan Lovett will line up on the 7th row of the grid in 13th and 14th positions. Row 8 is number 81, Adrian Mariadis, and number 2, Andy Lund. Row 9 is number 96, Peter Mott, and number 34, Alan Costley. Kevin Turner and Andrew Berg line up on the remainder of the top 20 on row 10. Row 11 is number 88, Michael Koo, and number 57, Ian Hapgood, followed by Marcus Eels and Mark Firth on the 12th row of the grid. Then it's Mike Hilton and Simon Arnold on row 13. And then towards the back, had to qualify separately. I think it was some kind of mechanical, I think even maybe a rain light issue, I think it was in qualifying, which forces Alex Vincent to start from the back of the grid for the first race. And I think maybe with some 26 Caterhams in front of you, he's going to have the worst of the visibility, given that the rain is not only, it's only still falling, but it's actually coming back a little bit as it eased off towards the end of this morning's qualifying.
Yeah, it looked over the lunch break as if maybe we were going to have no further rain going into this afternoon's races, but yeah, it's back. Not quite as heavily as it was earlier on, but probably enough that the track isn't going to really start to improve as far as standing water is concerned, and that's always a bit of an issue here at Donington because it is such a sweeping, undulating circuit. One of the big problems the drivers have to face is these little rivers of water that run across the road through the Craner curves, up through Schwantz curve, and also through the dip in the final chicane at Roberts as well. So, yeah, they've used this green flag lap just to scope that out, I suppose, see where the worst of the standing water is. But, yeah, expect a few lively moments here in the early stages, just as they try and get themselves back into the groove.
Should also mention that we've got the Run Your Fleet course car at the back of the grid. Big thank you to runyourfleet.com for not only getting into a partnership with the BRSCC, but also providing a fantastic Jaguar XF Sport Brake safety and course car, and that'll be running throughout the weekend. So, get ready, because it's finally time to end the wait. We've waited 6 long months, but finally the racing is underway here in the Caterham Roadsport Championship for 2021. It's a good start from pole position from Tom Cockrell on the left in the red and white machine. Taylor O'Flanagan slots in nicely, and also coming up down the outside looks to be Gwyn Jones taking it a wide line. Dominique Mansberger, who's always a demon in the wet, he was last year, is heading up the inside for second place into Redgate Corner, but everyone is being incredibly careful, tiptoeing their way through, and it's, I spoke too soon, number 5 is around. So number 5, just to remind myself of that was number 5 has gone around on my screen, and he appears to. I didn't have a number 5 on the grid.
No, is that maybe 25, Dominique Mansberger, who you were just saying was so good in the wet? No, I think he's still there, isn't he?
No, Mansberger's still there in third position. Cockrell was a little bit sideways as he went through, and they're still struggling for traction and grip as they come through the Craner curves, and they're being so tentative. It really is as bad as it looks out there weather-wise, because they're really having to be so tentative. In the full dry conditions, they'd be an absolute full chat nose to tail, but in these ones, particularly for the first race of the season, and their first proper competitive race for a while, at least with these upgrades, they're learning as they go on the fly. Even though they've had a full season of racing, there's still a lot that they have to keep on taking in and adapting to, particularly with the weather this bad so far.
Yeah, and we saw there through Redgate Corner just how easy it is just to spin up those rear wheels. These may just be cars racing in the road sports class, but they're powerful enough that it's easy to spin those rear wheels. Not probably a good idea to start banging into each other either on the first lap through Coppice there. That second place battle was getting a little bit feisty as they went through the top part of the circuit, but Tom Cockrell it is then that will lead them down to the chicane for the first time, and he is doing exactly what he said he wanted to when I spoke to him in the holding area. He's building a little bit of a gap now over the rest of the cars behind. They come out of the chicane, splash their way towards the start-finish line, and the first lap of the season is complete.
So Cockrell then leads the way. O'Flanagan in second place. Mansberger is up one spot to third, and Hugo Bush, who started third, he's now down to fourth position. It's the 97 Jones is up there in fifth position. Nick Timpson seventh, and it's Hall, West, Lancaster, and then the rest of the top 10. Ron Mountsie rounds out the top 10 at the end of the first racing lap. 20-minute race. And the first lap, at least off the grid, was about a 1:43 at least for the leader. But the first proper flying lap is when they start to get a judgment of the driver's pace. And just look at the amount of standing water and spray through the Craner curves. This is incredibly difficult. And I think they're thankful for those windscreens because, of course, they lose those when they move up to 270R. But I think they're making the most of those and the wipers, and to not get a face full of spray, and they're enjoying it while it lasts. Because of course they won't have, if they were doing this in the 270Rs, they wouldn't have that benefit.
Yes, I mean they get wet enough in these cars as it is because there are no roofs on Caterhams, so all of the drivers were sat there with umbrellas in the holding area earlier on, trying to keep the worst of the rain off them. Number 17 there getting a little bit sideways as it drops down into the old hairpin and makes its way back towards the top end of the circuit. But Cockrell then with a 1.3 second lead at the end of the first lap, and it does look as though he's starting to make good his escape even further now. O'Flanagan is busy, isn't he, really, just defending there from Dominique Mansberger, who got ahead of Hugo Bush on the opening lap. So Mansberger then living up to your billing here, Scott, as a bit of a rainmeister, and was applying pressure there to one of our reigning Academy champions.
He certainly was a rainmeister when we had the opening rounds at Alton Park, as you were there, of course. That was incredibly wet also, and the performance he put on was fantastic, where he sort of started a bit sort of further back, fourth or fifth on the grid, worked his way towards the front, and was a very enjoyable winner. He was the first winner of the season for his particular Academy group in the white group, but he finished second in points as a spin for 88, and 88, that's Michael Kerr, I think, that's had a rotation around at Coppice. We're now watching Alex Vincent in car number 17, and actually he starts at the back of the grid, and he's climbed already, looks like up to 13th position, so he's picked off half the field already, which is pretty astonishing in these conditions. So another rainmeister in the field, it seems to look like, but he's taken full advantage of the fact that he used to be enjoying the conditions whilst everyone else around them is just tiptoeing and struggling to try and find just a modicum of grip out there in ever increasingly difficult conditions.
Yeah, and the thing is, the conditions aren't always the same from one lap to the next. If the rain has intensified over the last 60 seconds or so, then by the time you get to Redgate, for example, it could be more or maybe less wet than it was the last time you went through there, and that just makes it so unpredictable for the drivers. Every lap is a bit of a voyage into the unknown. Taylor O'Flanagan, just as I said that he was losing touch with Tom Cockrell, actually, though, he responded on the previous lap with a new fastest lap then, which was, I think, 1 minute 39 they're into, aren't they now, which is pretty much matching their qualifying pace. Pole position from Cockrell was a 1:39.263, but O'Flanagan was quicker than him there on the first full flying lap of this 20-minute race. The gap then was pretty much halved between the two at the front of the field.
Just saw a battle there between Ron Mountsie and the 12, the 29 of Andrew Berg, and it looks also some progress being made by Ryan Lovett. And there goes Andrew Berg squeezing through in the bright orange machine, and that should take him up to around about 14th position by the looks of it as they make their way through the right-hander at McLean's. They need paddles and oars rather than wheels and a steering wheel to try and get themselves through. The race leaders, meanwhile, just outside our commentary box, and they're sweeping past the pits. There's a challenge on for third place as we look at this battle going on between the number 12 here, which is Ron Mountsie. Remember, he started back in on the grid. He was back in 13th, so he's currently running at the moment one place lower than he was at the start of the race. Lead gap is still about 0.8 of a second as we're seeing Ryan Lovett also squeezing past. Mountsie's going to try and hold on the outside line, and typically in racing circles the outside line has more grip in these wet conditions because there's less rubber, because obviously on a racing line you have tons of grips, therefore you want to be on the ultimate line to get the most amount of grip on the road. But in the rain you want to stay off the rubber because obviously when you apply water to the rubber it becomes wet and therefore you lose traction. So you'll see drivers moving off the line and taking what's called the karting line, which is off the typical line that you would take in the dry in order to get the line. For example, Ryan Lovett here not just making a move, but he'll have substantially more grip under braking heading into Redgate. Well, that's the theory anyway, but he makes the move up the inside and into 14th place he goes as we look back at the leaders. And Tom Cockrell here has lost the lead because Taylor O'Flanagan's through. So Taylor O'Flanagan has got through past Tom Cockrell, and now he's coming under threat from both Mansberger and Hugo Bush, who was lining up Mansberger on the pit straight and is now up into third place and possibly going to try and get through. His Cockrell still struggling. I don't think the weather conditions are in his favour anymore.
No, this isn't what I expected necessarily. You can see him hunting around for a grip, taking that wide line through Coppice that you just described, but it's not really working. Although, actually, having said that, he does get a better exit onto the exhibition straight. He is closing back in now on the yellow number 11 of Taylor O'Flanagan, and the top two once again are together. And this is the battle we were hoping to see, isn't it, really, between these two Academy champions from last year, making the graduation together up into Roadsports. We were kind of hoping this would be be the fight, at least in the early stages of the season, and possibly for the duration of the championship. That seems to be the case, doesn't it? Because they both are pushing each other on here, both of them setting fastest laps. It's Cockrell the inside line into Redgate corner. It looks so inviting on the way in, but as Scott was saying, there's no grip on the apex on the inside line, and so O'Flanagan, despite the fact he'd left the door wide open, comes off the corner quicker and retains the lead.
And Cockrell actually using the better traction off the right-hander at Coppice to set the fastest lap of the race. He's put in a 1:37.497. But look at Hugo Bush also offline trying to find grip. And O'Flanagan, again, that's not him outbraking himself. He's purposely running deep into the old hairpin to find the grip, because the apex is the last place you want to be in the wet conditions. So he's certainly trying to find as much traction as he can. And also keep an eye on Dominic Mansberger. Of course, the black and green car just at the back, a shot in 4th position. These 4 all together. And this is, for the most part, looking at it, mainly kind of, if you're comparing green group against white group, it's mainly a white group show, because it's 3 of the top white group drivers against the green group champion. So I think in terms of bragging rights, particularly towards the end of last year, they're proving which group, in some cases, was the fastest.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see, isn't it? The Academy Championship split into those 2 groups just to try and keep the grid numbers down, essentially, because they are all rookie drivers. Big moment there, a bit of standing water, I think, at the top of Coppice. There's also a green flag at the top of the hill at Coppice, which suggests there's a yellow flag just before it. So someone's been off up at the top part of the track. This lead battle further intensifying now, as again O'Flanagan carries a lot of speed into the chicane there, trying to find the grip. I'm not sure that worked quite so well though, and so Cockrell does have a run now coming on to the start-finish line. We're approaching half race distance, and this could be the first real chance here maybe for Tom Cockrell to reclaim this lead. He goes from the outside to the inside. That's covered by O'Flanagan, but to be honest, the outside is probably where Cockrell needs to be to try and find the grip. Loses ground on the entry to the corner, but look at the speed he's got through the middle of it. Comes off the turn well, and they'll be side by side through Hollywood for the race lead. Taylor O'Flanagan and Tom Cockrell, with Hugo Bush waiting in the wings if this all goes wrong, which it could do, because side by side through the crater curves is not easy at the best of times, especially in these foul conditions. I think though Cockrell's going to do it. He's got the inside line for the old hairpin. They're still together, and no, the grip on the outside keeps O'Flanagan ahead. Brilliant.
And look at the run Hugo Bush got off of the old hairpin. He's now going to try and sail around the outside, and watching on, that's a car in the gravel trap, unfortunately. I think it might be Chris Griffith, I think, because that was a 0 on the back of that car, and he's down a lap, so possibly Chris Griffith is the cause of the yellow flag up at Coppice, unfortunately. And Hugo Bush is up into 2nd place, so he managed to get that, use that run off the old hairpin to his full advantage and pull past last year's Academy Green Group champion. Now Tom Cockrell under big threat from Dominic Mansberger, who was pretty arguably, as I mentioned, the finest driver in the wet last year, although he was struggling a little bit on the apex there at Coppice. And of course, whilst they're trying to recover the stranded car of Chris Griffith, no overtaking through Coppice corner, so that's a potential passing spot gone for the time being as we head towards half distance. But now Hugo Bush using the most traction. He was actually the fastest of the 4 cars in the top 4 on that last time round. He had a 1:38.013, and he was about at least 4 tenths quicker than the 2 cars in front. So at the moment, it seems as though the conditions favouring Bush as Mansberger moves up to 3rd. This is not really going to plan for Tom Cockrell. He's going backwards and backwards and falling towards the back of the top 10.
It's so often the case, though, in these conditions that if you do attempt to make a move and it doesn't work, you just lose so much momentum coming off the corner that it's then easy to lose a position, or in Cockrell's case, 2, but he's going to get one back because Mansberger outbrakes himself through Redgate, runs out through the gravel trap. Thankfully, it's wet gravel, so he shouldn't bog down too much, and he's able to scrabble back on. And such is the pace advantage these 4 have over the rest of the field. In qualifying, they were about 2 seconds quicker than the 5th place car, these 4. They've built up enough of a gap that he's able to rejoin still in 3rd place. But that now elevates Cockrell back to 3rd, as Hugo Bush very much here is going after the race leader.
He's certainly pushing as hard as he can, and just to give context of how far these 4 are ahead, Gwyn Jones crossed the line 17.7 seconds back to the leader, so that's just how quick these guys are. And Gwyn Jones, as I mentioned when going through the grid, was someone who won a race last year, so he's certainly no slouch either as they head up towards putting a lap on. So that might be the 51 of Arnold, I think they're putting a lap on. So up the hill towards Coppice they go. This is the 7th lap on this first race of the season for the Caterham Roadsport Championship. And everyone here just trying to tiptoe and find their way through the gloom and the spray here at Donington Park. And now Tom Cockrell is almost reinvigorated, isn't he? He's managed to shake off Mansberger after he made the mistake at Redgate corner. Now he's right onto the tail of Hugo Bush. And Hugo Bush, of course, had to check up because he couldn't overtake the back marker heading through Coppice corners. That's really worked in Cockrell's favour. So O'Flanagan getting away now in almost clear air as Cockrell looks around the outside into the Robert chicane. and he hasn't quite made it stick. In fact, where's he gone? He's actually disappeared straight on. So Hugo Bush comes through in second place, but Tom Cockrell has gone missing. There he is. He reappears at the chicane, and ironically, the man to benefit from that is Dominic Mansberger. So literally, the third position changed twice as a result of both drivers making mistakes. You can tell Caterham Racing's back this year, can't you? Because they're certainly pushing as hard as they can and finding the limits, and they're certainly learning their way around this circuit, particularly in the wet conditions with this new package. And it doesn't come without just making one or two mishaps, does it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing that Tom was telling me on the grid, is that these new tyres they're dealing with, they're definitely taking a bit of time to get their head around them, and maybe they're overestimating the amount of grip they're going to have into the corners and just slipping off the road. Certainly seemed to be the case for Mansberger and Cockrell on that lap. Now that has rather released the leaders, hasn't it? Taylor O'Flanagan built up a nice cushion there, over 3 seconds between himself and Hugo Bush as a result of that back marker that Hugo wasn't able to overtake because of the yellow flags, and then they are in turn about 3.5 or 4 seconds now ahead of Mansberger and Cockrell, third and fourth. In fifth place, as Scott was saying, is Gwyn Jones, and sixth position not far behind him is Nick Timpson in the number 4. Good battles going on right the way through the field, not just amongst the leading quartet. And of course, as we mentioned, the leaders already now starting to get onto the back of the pack, so lapping back markers will start to be a feature.
Just watching here, another scrap that's going on. The car that they were lapping, just to correct myself, was Simon Arnold, car number 51, that was a little bit further back. We're watching here, we joined the battle between Ron Mounsey. He's also been joined now by the 27 of Kevin Turner. And then there's the sort of Marlborough-esque liveried car of number 6, which is Marcus Eel, starts in 23rd position. And then Michael Koo is in that group of cars just behind them. And then Ian Hapgood we were also looking at in the silver and purple car. And as you mentioned, Andy, the leaders are now just behind them. You see Taylor O'Flanagan there just towards the back of shot behind Ian Hapgood. And Hugo Bush now 2.6 seconds behind, but looks a bit quicker. And that's a spin for Michael Koo. He rotates the number 88. And eventually he'll stop. Eventually, yes he does, because it's quite sodden grass out there. So he has to wait for the car to sort of finish what it's doing and then try and get a handle on the brakes. And even particularly in these conditions, Andy, of course, with how much rain we've had this morning, actually being on the grass, actually some cases can cause the car to accelerate even quicker rather than trying to slow you down. So for someone who's in their second year of racing, that could be a pretty terrifying experience. Oops. And it's not a good experience for Hugo Bush either, because he's gone off the road at the old hairpin, again just proving how treacherous these are. And that's the worst thing you want to do. You want to feather the throttle, not dig yourself in, and I'm afraid Hugo Bush will be kicking himself for that one. And it seems that Taylor O'Flanagan, just whenever he gets challenged by somebody, they just all fall off by themselves, because we lost Dominic Mansberger in the gravel group briefly, then we lost Tom Cockrell briefly at the chicane, now we've lost Hugo Bush out of the race, sadly. It's almost as if people want to challenge Taylor O'Flanagan, but they can't just find the extra bit to get past them because something is stopping them from getting through.
Yeah, well, O'Flanagan now needs to hope that this curse of the top 4 doesn't hit him, because he's the only one, as you said, that hasn't been off the road yet, and he's still got just over a quarter of the race to go. He's dealing with traffic, which means he's having to go off the optimal line to get past them. Don't know if that's what happened to Hugo Bush, but it's possible. But you've got a feel there for Hugo. That's some valuable points that have gone away from him now, when he was in a fairly comfortable second and actually was coming back at the leader slightly on the previous lap with a personal best lap. Through across the start-finish line there goes the number 6, that's Marcus Eels. He's just gone a lap down. Marcus Eels running in the 19th place, as you can see on a very snazzy scoring pylon down the left-hand side of the screen, showing positions changing, personal best lap times coming in for a number of drivers as well, as the conditions are maybe getting better, or more likely, Scott, I think they're just getting more used to the weather conditions, aren't they? So they are finding a bit more confidence now, perhaps a bit too much in one or two cases.
Certainly for Hugo Bush, he'll certainly be looking to try and rectify that tomorrow when he has his second race, and he'll probably have emptied out about 3 tons of gravel after he's finished. So, but yeah, he'll certainly hope it's a bit drier tomorrow. Of course, it's scheduled to be fairly wet across the weekend, but hope that's the case. And Dominic Mansberger, now with Tom Cockrell right on his tail, is now trying to make his way past Marcus Eels. And again, he was another driver that got caught up by the yellow flags, because the yellow flag rule is, even if you're lapping somebody, you're not allowed to overtake anyone under a yellow flag zone. So again, Mansberger had to really back up heading through the old hairpin, wait for past the yellow flag zone, and then accelerate and get through. But all it's done is, once again, plays the hands of Tom Cockrell, who's trying to take a tighter line to keep on the back end of Dominic Mansberger here. And of course, as you mentioned, Tom Cockrell, apart from the Autumn Trophy and the 2021 Roadsport Challenge race we had at Snetterton, which are both non-championship, these two haven't really raced each other so much. So they're kind of learning about each other as they go along in terms of their driving styles and which lines they prefer. And so this is all having to do this on the fly in these races, because of course how Dominic Mansberger races to Tom Cockrell and vice versa is fairly alien, although he's getting an idea now down the back straight. He's got a good run, he's either side. It's like Hackett and Schumacher Spa 2000 move there, but Mansberg a little deeper under brakes. He slots past. I think that's one of the one of the lapped cars in the mix. That's Andy Bergbaum, I think it is. So Andy Berg, he's got through. He's out under threat from Ron Mountney. So there's cars back in the leading position, lapping cars that are also fighting in their own position, scraps of position as well. So it all gets rather frantic out there and trying to decide which way you go as Cockrell looks for the outside line, takes the deep approach on the wider line in, but he did this before. Taylor Flanagan and Mansberger runs wide again up the inside, and Tom says, thank you very much. If you're going to make it that easy, I'm taking it all day long.
Inch perfect, that wasn't it, from Tom Cockrell. He could not have got closer to the edge of the track going into the corner, but that's where you need to be. The wider you go through to Redgate Corner, the more grip you've got. Mansberger certainly didn't have enough grip through the middle of the crane of curves there. The car really got away from him. He did well to catch that as they slip and slide their way through the old hairpin. At no point do either of these two drivers have full control of their cars. The cars are just sliding around all over the place, and when you're running behind another car, as Mansberger is, you can't even see where you're going, really. So I cannot stress to you just how difficult this is to race this close to each other without, touchwood, making any contact as Mansberger goes up the inside again through McLean's. But although it's the quick way into the corner, you just don't come off the corner quick enough, and so Cockrell is able to hang on.
It's all the standing water on the apex that causes it, as Cockrell again showing that casting line, the wide approach that you take. It looks fairly heady, you think they're going straight on, but it's absolutely natural. Meanwhile, back at the front with 2 minutes to go, Taylor Flanagan will be keeping everything crossed that he can keep it on the road, and he has kept it pretty trouble-free. Well, that's probably going to be curse of the Commodore now, I've said that. But he heads out of the Robert chicane. Meanwhile, for second place, Cockrell digging his nose in front. Mansberger tries the deeper approach on the outside line. The chicane is all over the AstroTurf on the inside line, but Tom Cockrell's already through and holding on to second place. We're going on to, I think, possibly the penultimate lap of the race, because lap time so far are around about the 1:40, so they are at least for Taylor Flanagan. But that said, the last lap time for Cockrell and Mansberger was some 2 seconds quicker. So either just Taylor's trying to hold on, although trying to hold on to the position now is Tom Cockrell, but he tries to go. They're always trying to outdo each other, what they can do to take each other out or take themselves out of the race, because Mansberger was so close there, almost made contact. It's an entertaining battle, but I'm sure for those two teams, for the two families and teams watching on for these guys, they'll be watching through their hands at this point.
I know I said you want to go as wide as possible through Redgate Corner to find the grip, but Cockrell was off the circuit then trying to find grip, and as he rejoined, Mansberger was understeering into him, and they did, I think, bang wheels, but nothing too significant damage-wise. You're right about O'Flanagan. He was off the pace on the previous lap. I think he's probably just stroking at home. He's got the gap, hasn't he? But there was no traffic in the way, so not quite sure why he lost so much time to these two. At the moment, though, these two aren't even thinking about Taylor O'Flanagan. They are all over each other as they go through the top part of the circuit. Dominic Mansberger, now that he's behind, probably feels that he's quicker, but he just can't find a way through.
And what was noticeable there, if you spotted it, Tom Cockrell was all sorts of skittish on the run towards McLean's corner. He really nearly lost the back end of the car. Shades of when Anthony Reid lost his Nissan Primera up there in Donington, the BTCC in 1998. Very similar vibes there. He almost lost the back end, but just about caught it. Flanagan almost seems like he's gliding it through the Robert chicane now. He's going to come across the line, and he will have one more lap to go. He's thinking, really, another one? Really? He just wants to see the checker flag and secure the first win of the season. Cockrell has managed to hold on to second place, somehow in these conditions, and then Dominic Mansberger in third, but there's the gap. And let's look at how it sits now. So yeah, they're still closing in. I suspect you're right. He is just easing off and just going as fast as he needs to without taking too many risks to get to the checkered flag. And a little flick of oversteer exit at Redgate Corner. I suspect they're only taking it slightly easier, but he's sort of enjoying himself in these conditions, if that's even possible.
I was about to say, coming through the chicane, you could really see from the body language of O'Flanagan's car that he wasn't pushing too much, because it wasn't moving around half as much as Cockrell and Dominic Mansberger's cars were, and then he went and flung it sideways through Redgate just to disprove my point. But even when you're backing off, it's easy sometimes just to lose traction. Tom Cockrell losing traction, not because he's backing off, but because he's trying to do the exact opposite and hang on to that second place from Dominic Mansberger. Further back, it's still Timpson in fourth place, Jones in fifth, and a few places lost on that lap for the number 98 of James Hall. So James Hall dropping down to seventh, unfortunately throwing away a few places and therefore valuable championship points right at the death. But the clock is about to tick down to 0, which means this will be the final lap, and barring any major dramas on the final lap, it's going to be a brilliant start to the season for our race leader Taylor O'Flanagan.
He makes his way down the back straight, down the exhibition straight, past the Donington Historic Museum and up towards the Robert chicane for the final time. And he could have picked better conditions to do it, but I'm sure a win is a win, and he'll take it any way he can. He heads through the final chicane for the last time, and the first winner of the 2021 BRSCC and Caterham Roadsport season is going to be Taylor O'Flanagan. For second place, we need to decide who it's going to be. O'Flanagan crosses the line and takes victory in the first Caterham Roadsport Championship race of 2021, and he celebrates by heading towards the pit wall. Second place, but only just, is last year's Green Group champion Tom Cockerell, and then Dominic Mansberger pushes him all the way to third place. So the two Academy champions are 1-2 on the podium, but it's the opposite way around for how they qualify, which will be very interesting indeed. Now, through all of this, Nick Timpson has managed to pick his way past Gwyn Jones, and he will finish fourth. That's one of his best results, I think, to date since he started racing. Cross the line goes number 4. Gwyn Jones picks up in 5th position, and for 6th place, incredibly, from the back of the grid, we remind you, is going to be Alex Vincent. We're watching here, I think that's Andy Berg who's battling away with, I think it was Kevin Turner, I think. And there goes Marcus Eels and Ian Hapgood. I'm waiting to see what Alex Vincent, there he is across the line in 5th position outside my commentary box window. 6th, forgive me. But that's an incredible drive. That's almost drive of the day so far from the back of the grid, and what was, I think, 27th on the grid. Having not really set a proper time in qualifying, at least with his own kind of cars. He went out with the, I think it was correct, the 270R machines he went out with. To come from 27th to 6th in those conditions, hats off, that's a superb drive.
Yeah, exactly. In these conditions, especially in the dry, you might expect it to be a little more doable because of the slipstreaming nature of these cars. You know, you can overtake in Caterham racing very well, but in the wet, with the low visibility, the even lower grip, yeah, that is a phenomenal performance there from everyone, honestly, that got to the end. There were only 1 or 2 that slipped off the track. And when you consider these are the least experienced Caterham drivers we've got racing with us this weekend, that was all the more impressive, and a great show put on at the front. I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to this championship battle between Cockerell and O'Flanagan, and it's good to see that, at least based on early pace, the likes of Dominic Mansberger and the unlucky Hugo Bush are also on their pace, and we're setting up initially for a 4-way championship fight, and I'm sure there will be other drivers as the season goes on who get closer and closer to their pace. Maybe in the dry, which hopefully we'll experience at some point this year, we should see even more competitive racing. So yeah, set to be a good year, I think, Scott.
Yep, I have to concur with that. So let's run you through the result then, or the provisional result, of course, from that race. It was Taylor O'Flanagan who picks up the victory from Tom Cockerell in 2nd place. In fact, here are the race results, very fancy. So Taylor O'Flanagan picks up the win, Tom Cockerell in 2nd place, Dominic Mansberger 3rd, and also picks up the fastest lap of the race on the final lap, 1:36.551. Nick Timpson, who started back in 7th place, finishes 4th, ahead of Gwyn Jones in 5th. Driver of the day already has to be, as I mentioned, Alex Vincent, who started back in 27th to finishes in 6th position. 7th goes to Adam West, 8th goes to Adrian Mariadis, 9th goes to number 49, which was Steve Lancaster, and 10th goes to Peter Mott, number 96. Then it's James Hall and Andy Lund from Ryan Lovett and Christopher Broome. Then it's Andy Bergbaum and Kevin Turner, Ron Mountseat and Marcus Eels, Ian Hapgood, and number 23 of Mark Firth. And then it's the rest of the cars coming through, which we had, was also Simon Arnold was another finisher, and then the 2 cars that we lost, sadly, were Hugo Bush in the gravel trap at the Old Hairpin, and up at Coppice we also lost Chris Griffith as well. So there'll be a little bit of a break here whilst we go ahead and get these couple of cars recovered. The next race coming up is our first race of the season for the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship, and of course they had to brave the worst of these conditions out in qualifying this morning. They're already lined up in the assembly area, ready to go. Some bright young new stars to challenge some of the established names in the Formula 4 circles in this race, and it should be quite a spectacle from start to finish in their 15-minute encounter. We've also got to remind you more Caterham racing from the 270R Championship, and also the combined grid for the 310R and 7 UK Championship, which is a new specification for this year, of course, with upgraded suspension, dedicated Avon slick and wet tyres, and an increased engine rev limit. They are the fastest Caterhams, or some of the fastest Caterhams, racing cars that have ever been produced by Caterham Motorsport, and they're going to be glorious around here on that shared grid. And of course, once that the last race of today is the longest race, which is the first race of the season for the Fun Cup Championship. 4 hours of racing there, but despite the length, it will be action-packed from start to finish. There are the drivers in the assembly area, and I think that's a bit of an embrace there between the 2 champions, Taylor O'Flanagan and Tom Cockerell, and giving a thumbs up. And also, there's some celebrations there with Dominic Mansberger as well, who had to fight hard for that 3rd place battling with Tom, and will certainly feel that he earned it. But it's all smiles and hugs all around, I'm sure, with underneath the helmets. Yep. And I think quite a fitting way to start the season, Andy.
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, some pretty exciting racing out there, I think, with our first race of the day. The drivers are all out of their cars, and I think we can now introduce, hopefully, the 3rd member of our commentary team, because whilst myself and Scott have got the cushy, nice, warm, dry commentary job, so out there in the miserable weather is our roving reporter for the day, Jamie Peters-Ennis, and he should be with our podium finishers.
Horrible conditions. Winner for the first round is Taylor
O'Flanagan, who pretty much dominated that race. You are aware in Caterham fashion you're not meant to win by about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think I just got lucky when it got to the back markers. Everybody got a bit caught up and I managed to get through quite clean. But yeah, just keeping it on the track was the main goal.
I mean, what are the conditions like out there? It's gone to that sort of horrible, greasy stage now. And as we know, Donington Park is renowned for being extremely slippery. Were you having to use some of the karting lines?
To be honest, the car feels amazing in Roadsport spec with the new tyres. I was amazed by the amount of grip. So yeah, absolutely loved it. It felt great.
Fantastic. Well done, Taylor. Second place is Tom Cockrell. Tom, if you'd like to come over here. Tom, you started on pole, but nevertheless, second place is still a great start to the weekend for you.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. I took a trip to the gravel, which didn't help matters. I think Taylor was the only one that didn't actually go off track, so probably deserves it. Yeah, good race, good result. Happy to come home in one piece.
And like we say, conditions are horrible out there, aren't they?
Yeah, well, it's good fun. Plenty of drifting going on.
All right, excellent. Well done. Thanks a lot, Tom. And in third place was Dom Mansberger. Dom, you were pretty busy out there, weren't you? And right at the end, you were catching Tom. Just pipped you towards the end, but you're probably hoping to go one better or even two better next time round.
Hopefully tomorrow a bit better, but it's anyway, it's good to be on the podium again. And yeah, today was all about getting the race finished and to score some points because it's a long season, 14 races, and we've seen many spins out there. So yeah, I'm happy with that.
Fantastic. Well done. There's your top three for the first round of the Caterham Roadsport Championship.
So behind us here are the Roadsport drivers. They were one of our first races yesterday, and it was a win for Taylor O'Flanagan, but he was on the front row alongside one of his fellow Academy champions from last year, Tom Cockrell. So we'll have a quick chat to some of the drivers, and we'll probably start with our man who won the race yesterday, which is Taylor O'Flanagan. So let's take a look, have a chat with our race winner from yesterday. Taylor, congratulations on your win yesterday. Now the big task, can you make it 2 from 2?
I'll be doing my very best to.
I think it's probably an obvious answer, but how did the conditions feel out there? Because it looked horrible. Was it as horrible as it looked?
It was very, very slippery, so yeah, we had to be quite creative with the lines to try and defend, but yeah, it was got home safe in the end.
Yeah. How does it feel with the car now you've made the upgrades from Roadsport from Academy? You've got the new tyres and a couple other bits on it. Is there a market difference?
Massively, it's a different car. Yeah, it's incredible. The tyres, especially in the wet, they were amazing yesterday, so yeah, very, very happy with how it's feeling.
Good stuff. And so you've got obviously your fellow Academy champion from last year alongside you. You must have had fun racing him alongside him. Now it's in the dry. Is he going to be a bit more formidable today?
Nah.
Bold words.
Nah, we'll have a good race, I'm sure. We've got some very quick guys behind us, so I'm confident it'll be a good battle out there. But yeah, I'll be doing my very best to stay at the front.
One and again for yesterday. Best of luck. See if you can make it 2 from 2.
Thank you very much.
Let's have a chat with this fellow Academy champion from last year and the man who finished a little bit further down than he would like to have done in second place with this Tom Cockrell. Tom, I think you said yesterday you were quite a fan of the wet, but yesterday didn't quite go as you planned, did it?
Well, I really enjoyed the race, which is what we're here to do, right? Yeah, Taylor, he was the only one that didn't make a mistake in the race, so he deserved to win. I'll try and make amends today.
So, of course, you're one of the reigning Academy champions. How much confidence does that give you coming into your first season here in Roadsport?
Obviously, it helps. I was in kind of the opposite group to Taylor, Dom and Hugo, so it's my first time racing with those guys. Maybe put me on the back foot a little bit, but we'll get there.
Of course, you must be enjoying going up against him finally, because, of course, you two have been racing in separate groups all year, and then finally you get a chance to see who's the better Academy champion out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good racing, it's close racing, and hopefully at the end of it, I'll come out on top.
Do you think the dry conditions are going to probably help you a bit better than they did with the wet yesterday?
I think I was probably the slowest of the four in the dry on Friday, so we'll see how it goes. Get through turn 1 and then evaluate from there.
Well, best of luck. See if you can come home with a winner's trophy.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Good stuff. A few more stories from the Roadsport races yesterday. 2 more drivers we need to talk to as well. We've got the guys in the second row of the grid. Dominic Mansberger, who was incredible in the wet conditions last year and was so yesterday. And also Nick Timpson, who made a couple of places up as well. We'll have a chat with Dominic as well. Dominic, great to see you. I think it's fair to say you're a bit of a rainmeister, because you certainly performed well last year in the wet, and you were pretty handy yesterday as well.
Yeah, definitely. I like these conditions pretty much, although I struggled a bit yesterday with understeering. And yeah, also I had a long and intense fight with Tom Cockrell. But anyway, I enjoyed the race a lot, and hopefully today we have another big fight.
Of course, it's much different conditions being practically bone dry. Are you expecting a pace difference? Do you think you'll be possibly have an advantage over the two in front, or will it be a bit different?
I'll definitely expect more cars to be together. So not like yesterday where we could stay away a bit. I think at least 6-7 cars will stay in the top and will fight each other, so it will be much closer than yesterday.
And just quickly, you've got a bit of racing history already before coming into the academy, because your father raced against alongside another regular racer who's in the Caterham paddock.
Yeah.
Because you're racing, you got the son of Kurt Hoffman, of course, with Lars Hoffman racing in the Roadsports. So you've got a bit of history between the two of you from your father's racing together in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the great thing about Caterham, and it's kind of a family feeling in the paddock. And of course, due to the history, my father and Kurt raced together. So this is also a quite important thing for us that really makes it exciting to race here in the Caterham series. Even though it's not our home country, that makes it far more interesting.
Good stuff. We'll let you get focused. Best of luck for race 2.
Thank you.
Let's also have a chat with Nick Timpson, 4th over there. One person I do want to have a chat to is Alex Vincent, because he had some problems in qualifying and he managed to come from the back of the grid, which is 27th if I'm correct, all the way to 6th, so we'll try and find out how he felt about that. Alex, I have to say, you were certainly driver of the day yesterday in Roadsports, from the back of the grid to 6th. That was an incredible drive in what was really horrible conditions.
Yeah, no, I just had a lot of places to make up. Yeah, conditions were awful, but I think it played into my advantage, to be honest.
So now it's completely dry. Are you expecting to be, and now obviously higher up the grid, being started from 6th, are you expecting to give these guys front a bit more of a bit more of a headache?
Hopefully, that's definitely the aim. Yeah.
And how have you coped from the transition between Academy and Roadsport? You've been getting used to the new upgrades. When you're speaking to Taylor, it says he makes a marked difference. It's quite different between the car from last year.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, tyres are brilliant. Real difference. Yeah.
Good stuff. We'll let you get focused. Best of luck for race 2.
Thank you.
Let's see the rest of the group we've got down here. We've got Adrian Mariadis and Adam West. And you can see on the number plate, being called Adam West, obvious nickname, Batman. So see if he can work as well as he can. Quick run down the rest of the grid. They have some very minor upgrades between the Academy and the Roadsport, particularly the tyres, a little bit of tweaks to the suspension. They're roughly about a second a lap quicker, which is quite prominent. But you can see, nice fast stretching grid down there, and we'll see if possibly we can have a chat to a few more drivers, see how they feel. We've got, who can I have a chat to? Let's have a chat to, who's further down here? Let's have a chat to Andy Lund, because Andy Lund's been quite prominent up and down through the grid, so we'll see how he's feeling at the start of this race. Andy, good to see you. Some of the drivers remarking it was pretty tough out there with the wet conditions. How did you find it yesterday?
I'm afraid I'm a fair weather driver, so I found it pretty miserable. It's probably one of the worst driving experiences of my life, but all part of the experience curve that this series allows you to enjoy.
Well, at least now you've got the fair weather for today, so hopefully that will play into your favour pace-wise, hopefully?
I hope so. It's just like testing was on Thursday and Friday, so what we practiced for, so no real excuses this time round.
Yeah. And you must have been looking forward to coming into your second season. You obviously must have enjoyed the first year in the Academy, so how much of an advocate are you for kind of people getting involved in this championship if they want to go racing?
I think it's fantastic. It's super well organised, but enough to sort of let you do your own thing, and the upgrades are at a nice pace to really sort of make you feel like you're progressing. So we'll
let you go for qualifying. Thanks a lot. Right, so the car's now heading off for their first race of the day, not qualifying. So in that case, we'll hand you over to my fellow commentator for today, Andy McEwan. Andy, if there's anything to go by, particularly with the dry conditions today, the racing should be spectacular.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Donington Park, a day full of super close racing, I hope, in prospect today. The sun is shining, there's a bit of cloud, but believe me, this is tropical compared to the weather yesterday. It really didn't stop raining from the moment we arrived at the track yesterday morning to the moment we left. Had a bit more rain overnight, but the track is dry now ahead of this first race of the day, and that is good news because Caterham racing is good in the wet, but it's usually fairly epic in the dry. That's what we're hoping to see over the course of the day, because all of the Caterham Racing Championships, as Scott was telling us, are racing here throughout the course of this morning and this afternoon. This is the second race then of the weekend for the Caterham 7 Roadsport Championship. Yesterday's race won by Taylor O'Flanagan, despite the fact he started behind his fellow Academy champion from last year, Tom Cockrell, on the grid. The Academy Championship is split into 2 grids, hence how you can have 2 champions in 1 year, and they both lined up on the front row yesterday. 1-0 at the moment then to Taylor O'Flanagan. He's got the pole position for this second race of the weekend, but he and Tom Cockrell, I think, are set for a season-long championship battle in the pursuit of the Caterham 7 Roadsports Championship. This is the second tier on the Caterham racing ladder. Generally speaking, drivers start off in Academy, then they move up to Roadsports, then they will progress up to the 270Rs, then 310Rs, and then ultimately they'll be racing, they hope at least, in the Caterham 7 UK Championship, and we'll see all of those championships racing at one point or another today. Cars out onto the green flag lap then, ahead of what will be a 20-minute race. Let's run you through that grid in a bit more detail. Then it's Taylor O'Flanagan on pole position with Tom Cockrell alongside, as we've said. Dominique Mansberger lines up third on the grid, and Nick Timpson will be alongside him on row number 2. Gwyn Jones and Alex Vincent make up the third row, ahead of Adam West and Adrian Mariadis on the 4th row. Steve Lancaster and Peter Mott round out the top 10, and they're just ahead of James Hall and Andy Lund. Ryan Lovett and Chris Broom make up the 7th row. Andy Bergbaum and Kevin Turner are on row 8, with Ron Mounsey and Marcus Eels on the 9th row. Ian Hapgood and Mark Firth round out the top 20. It's a 25-car grid though, so towards the back we have Mike Hilton and Michael Koo. Simon Arnold 23rd, and then one to definitely watch out for is Hugo Bush, number 22, from the 12th row of the grid. He was one of 2 non-finishers yesterday, the other being Chris Griffith, who rounds out the 25-car grid at the back. But Hugo Bush was in the leading quartet. The story of yesterday's race basically was a 4-way scrap between O'Flanagan, Cockrell, Mansberger and Hugo Bush. And at one point or another, 3 of those 4 drivers found themselves in the kitty litter. Tom Cockrell went off at one point, Mansberger went off, so did Hugo Bush. But Hugo was the only one of those 3 that wasn't able to rejoin the circuit, so he ended up non-finishing and threw away quite a lot of championship points as a result. He arguably should have been in the top 4, maybe even could have got himself a podium, so he's one to watch as he tries to carve his way through from the back of the grid. That is, though, something that you should be able to do in Caterham Roadsports racing. The slipstream effect with these cars is pretty much guaranteed to keep the racing nice and close. It allows lots of overtaking, and it means it's almost impossible to break away at the front of the field. So expect this to be a race that is very much decided in the last few corners, not the first few. Cars then lining up on the grid. On the left-hand side of shot is where pole position is. That's the inside line for Redgate Corner. So Taylor O'Flanagan is the yellow car. The red and white, number 59 alongside him, is Tom Cockrell. The green and black is Dominique Mansberger, and Nick Timpson is also green and black, but he's a bit more green than black, if that makes any kind of sense. So the 2 green and black cars sharing the second row. What a sight they make as they pull into line. Right at the back, we do indeed have Chris Griffith, so we've got all 25 cars starting the race. Those that didn't finish yesterday, thankfully not sustaining any major damage. The green flag then waves at the back of the grid, and round number 2 of the Caterham 7 Roadsports Championship is about to get underway here from Donington Park. The red lights go on, they go out now, we're away and racing. Who's going to get into Redgate Corner first? It looks like it's a good start made from the second row of the grid there by Dominique Mansberger, but there's nowhere to go. On the outside line, it's Cockrell that has the lead into Redgate Corner, and he will go ahead of Taylor O'Flanagan, so Cockrell gets the lead. O'Flanagan and Mansberger side by side for second place, and Mansberger on the outside line just runs out of road, runs out over the curb and loses momentum as a result. Down through Hollywood, through the Craner curves for the first time, and thankfully they've got a lot more grip today than they had at this point in their race yesterday, where they had some of the wettest conditions to deal with on their Saturday race in the Roadsports field. Bone dry now though as they head through the old hairpin at full race pace. On the outside line there we're seeing the number 5 car, that is Chris Broom trying to make progress, but it's Cockrell versus O'Flanagan already for the race lead as they go towards McLean's Corner, and up the inside line goes Taylor O'Flanagan. He gets the lead back, so that's 2 lead changes in less than a lap, and that I think is probably going to set the trend for this race. Up the hill they go, climbing even further now towards the highest point on the circuit, and you can see how we've got this big group of cars at the head of the field, a good 6 or 7 of them nose to tail before you get the first real break in the traffic. Chris Broom again continuing to
Dice away there in the midfield, side by side for the lead again, and now it's 3 lead changes in the first lap, or is it? No, O'Flanagan holds on the inside into the chicane, but Cockrell did have his nose ahead there as they went into the braking zone. O'Flanagan comes out of the chicane though as the race leader. Cockrell was a bit slow off the corner, so he is under pressure from Dominic Mansberger, and then ducking out of line is Alex Vincent in the number 17 car. He's the first man to brave the outside line. Now Cockrell goes to the outside of O'Flanagan. That leaves the door wide open for Mansberger to try and get at the inside for second position. They come out of the turn still side by side with O'Flanagan in the lead, but Cockrell and Mansberger wheel to wheel for second place, and we do already have this sort of 6-car breakaway, don't we? Because you've got O'Flanagan, Cockrell, Mansberger, Vincent, Jones and Adam West all in this group, and then the first of the gaps really is between Adam West in 6th and Nick Timpson in 7th position. Down through the old hairpin then, everyone thankfully makes it round the first lap. Where was Hugo Bush? He's already up to 18th position, having started from the very back, or pretty much the very back of the grid. 24th of 25 cars on the grid was Hugo, and he's already started to make progress, but will he be able, by the end of the 20-minute race, to get onto terms with this leading group of 6, which makes its way up through Coppice Corner for the second time of asking. Taylor O'Flanagan just about hanging on to the advantage then. Didn't get into the first corner first, did O'Flanagan, but he was able to fight back halfway round the lap, and now Cockrell tries to do what he tried to do a lap ago, which is go to the outside line into the chicane. He does the same thing again, look, gets his nose ahead, but he's not able to clear O'Flanagan before they turn into the corner. So for the second lap in a row, it's Taylor that leads the way. Dominic Mansberger well quicker out of the chicane there than Tom Cockrell, and this time he has managed to find the overlap on the inside line. So Mansberger goes to the inside of Cockrell, and to the outside of him now goes Alex Vincent, so it's 3 wide for second place. Cockrell sends it into Redgate Corner really late on the brakes. It's almost an action replay of what we saw a lap ago, with Taylor O'Flanagan watching in his mirrors and seeing this terrific side-by-side battle behind him. On this occasion though, can Mansberger break through? No, he can't, so Cockrell hangs on to that second place. Mansberger's back up the inside though as they drop down into the old hairpin. He just can't quite get there. Well, brilliant racing here in the early stages. Scott Woodwiss has joined me back again in the commentary box, and this is the kind of racing we were hoping to see. Yesterday's race was good, but now with full dry conditions we're getting proper slipstreaming Caterham Roadsport action.
Absolutely. I think the rain did certainly hamper some of the racing prospects because everyone was being so careful to not throw it off the road, but thankfully it appears as though the racing is really starting to step up a notch a little bit more. We're seeing here, looks like, I think that's Alex Vincent under threat from Adam West as they come up through the top of the circuit. Then we've got the next group headed by Nick Timpson, Lancaster, Mariadis, Mott Hall, and I think also Ryan Lovett's not too far away in the mix as well either, so plenty of action at the bottom of the top 10, but yeah, that top 6 is certainly getting away pretty prominently.
Yeah, and they were doing that really halfway round the first lap, and they've just continued to run this strong pace. Cockrell's got himself in front this time at the chicane, so Tom Cockrell moves back into the lead of the race, but he outbraked himself slightly, so coming off the corner, O'Flanagan is quicker. In fact, everyone is quicker than him, and they're all going to try and swamp him down into Redgate Corner. We're at least 3, maybe 4 wide for the race lead, because to the outside goes Adam West. You've got Mansberger in the middle as well. Cockrell on the inside, O'Flanagan in the yellow car. I think they'll just get the lead. This is getting very, very tight indeed. Taylor O'Flanagan, has he managed to clear Cockrell again? Yes, he has. O'Flanagan gets the lead then. Cockrell now wheel to wheel with Mansberger for second position. Only on this occasion, he will have the inside line for the old hairpin, except he's nearly on the grass. Gets really sideways, does Cockrell. Mansberger goes second then, so the new order, it's O'Flanagan that leads. It's Mansberger second and Tom Cockrell down to third.
And Tom Cockrell was saying he preferred the wet conditions yesterday, but the wet conditions didn't really play into his favour too much, and looks at the dry conditions, whilst he's in the leading pack and he can race a little bit better, it's not really working. It is working for Dominic Mansberger though. He was very confident on the grid and trying to go round the outside of McLean's of leader Taylor O'Flanagan, which couldn't quite make it happen. Seeing Adam West now sort of trying to put a move on Gwyn Jones. That's going to be for fifth position, because up just ahead of him now is Alex Vincent. Up through Coppice they go now for the 4th time, and still we see here no real proper advantage. Mansberger has got through into a lead, but as they come back down towards the Robert chicane now is the 4th time. It's going to be 3 abreast again as Cockrell dares to go down the outside line. They are going to go side by side by side. Going a little bit deeper into the corner goes O'Flanagan. Mansberger holds the line, and now Cockrell will look for a better run on O'Flanagan onto the pit straight. He gets into the slipstream as they come back down towards Redgate Corner again to start lap 5. Incredibly, we've already been 5 minutes into this race. We've got enough action to fill the entire regular race in many cases. 3 abreast again down towards Redgate once more. Cockrell fancies the outside line. Both he and Mansberger sandwich O'Flanagan. O'Flanagan now converts that to the outside outside line of Mansberger. It's a better run. Running wide there, both Alex Vincent and also Adam West. And also look behind, because 7th and 8th place cars, Nick Timpson and Steve Lancaster, they're both starting to close in. This is typical of Caterham racing, particularly side by side at the Craner curves. Flanagan wants that lead back, but Mansberger holds on as they come back into the old hairpin. But the top 6 is about to become a top 8 here, because Timpson and Lancaster have broken away from the second pack, and that's typical Caterham racing, because if the front group starts to battle, then more and more cars start to latch on, and the lead group becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know it, half the field are battling for the lead in one giant pack at the front.
And remarkably, and this is something I didn't expect to be saying at the start of the race, one of those drivers before much longer could be Hugo Bush, because he's into the top 10 now from the back of the grid. He gained just the 4 positions on the previous lap to move into that 10th spot, and he's in that next group behind Timpson and Lancaster, 7th and 8th, that Scott quite rightly pointed out are gaining quickly on the leaders. So the more this lead battle intensifies, which we know it's going to continue to do over the remaining 13 minutes, the more cars are going to tag onto the back of the group. Cockrell to the outside, Mansberger to the inside. They're 3 wide for the lead into the chicane. Cockrell tries to go right round the outside. He's all over the curb. That almost ended in tears. Mansberger gets the lead, but Cockrell has really lost out. He loses his momentum, and as they come across the start-finish line, it's now the turn of the number 17 car of Alex Vincent to try and make it 4 wide. Mansberger has the lead. O'Flanagan second. Everybody else is third as they hit the brakes for Redgate corner. On the inside line goes the number 97 car. That is Gwyn Jones for 3rd position. Cockrell now battling for 4th. He is rather slipping down this pack, isn't he?
This is shades of yesterday when he was having not so much great work, and he had to work his way back towards the front to get himself into 2nd place, but that was a hard effort even in the conditions that he was more favourable in. So this is really getting tricky, and he really had to take 2 bites at the apex through the old hairpin to try and get the car turned in as best as he could. The rest of the pack makes its way through. Ryan Lovett's dropped back a few spots. He's down to 15th ahead of Andy Lund, who we spoke about on the grid. I think that's somebody running wide. That's somebody spinning, and I couldn't quite catch who that was. It was a red machine, and it was Andy Berg, I think it might be. Andy Berger was 14th, number 29. Yes, it is. Andy Berger's had a spin, so sadly from a mid-pack position all the way down to the tail of the field. I suspect he might have done it by himself, but Mansberger here back at the front is really putting Taylor O'Flanagan under pressure. I suspect we won't get a concrete leader until probably about sometime the last lap, and even then that's not guaranteed, because ironically in a Caterham race, the last place you want to be, or the worst place you want to be, is in the lead, last corner, last lap, because by the time you exit it, there's no guarantee you'll stay there by the checkered flag.
Yeah, I think we need to be getting that photo finish camera ready for this one, don't we? Because at the moment we've got at least any one of 8 or 9 drivers that could win it. One driver on the grass though, that's Batman, Adam West, as he loses a bit of speed as a result of that. Number 4 coming charging through, 2 I've spotted. That's Nick Timpson, who started on the 2nd row, dropped back initially, but he's right back in this leading group of, yeah, it is 9 cars now, isn't it? Hugo Bush, would you believe, is in this group. Hugo Bush for the win, maybe from 24th on the grid. We'll wait and see. He's 8th place at the moment, the number 22, and he might have even picked another one up there through Redgate corner. Side by side for the lead, meanwhile, the yellow car is O'Flanagan, the green one is Dominic Mansberger, and Tom Cockrell back into 3rd place now, trying to take advantage of those 2 running side by side ahead of him. Down through the old hairpin they go there. You can see the gap between 9th place Lancaster and 10th position, which at the start of the lap at least was Peter Mott. Further back though, still some brilliant battling going on. It's easy to get sidetracked and focus entirely on the lead battle, and you can see why, because it is truly epic. But wherever you are in a Caterham race, Scott, you've usually got someone to race with.
Usually, and if you can keep with them, depending on how much the back cars are battling in front, you can possibly work your way towards the front. There's contact in the background. There was one car that went sideways. I fear it might have tagged another. I couldn't quite catch exactly who that was, but it was certainly a yellow machine around about mid-pack. So if the kick pitchers can get back there, we might be able to see possibly who was involved in that, and hopefully it wasn't too serious if it was an accident. It might have just been a spin. Side by side for the lead. Down the outside looks Tom Cockrell, but O'Flanagan has the inside line covered, and everyone's trying to be 3rd place behind them once again. We see now up the inside Gwyn Jones on Dominic Mansberger, and Hugo Bush is in there now. He's side by side with Nick Timpson. He has also got just behind him there, looks like Alex Vincent and also Lancaster in the mix as well. So as they come across the line, the lead group is 9 cars strong, from O'Flanagan all the way down to Steve Lancaster at the back of that group. Back to the lead goes O'Flanagan. Everyone's trying to be 3 wide behind. Nick Timpson gets sideways, gets up onto the gravel at Redgate corner, tracks his way through, just about keeps the car running in a straight line, albeit with a little bit of a wiggle. He gets going again, and thankfully he's managed to recover from that as they come down through the Craner curves again on lap 8, and the runyourfeet.com safety car has been deployed. And I suspect, Andy, it was for something that happened up at McLean's in the aftermath after that car went spinning.
Yeah, Peter Mott and James Hall have gone missing, and they were running together in, I think, 9th and 10th at the start of the lap, so that would make sense for it to be those 2, and yeah, they're the only 2 that haven't come through to complete the 6th lap. Well, It's a shame we've got a safety car, Scott, and obviously a huge shame for Peter Mott and James Hall, whose races have come to an end, but I could kind of do with a breather, really. This is a nice little half-time break, isn't it? That was sensational racing, but there is something about Caterham racing, especially at Donington Park. This is what we get every time. This circuit, because it's got such a high average speed, because momentum is so key, because the slipstream plays such a big role in the racing, you're pretty much guaranteed a thriller every time, aren't you?
Yeah, I could wholeheartedly agree with that. Genuinely, any time Caterhams do come to Donington, it's usually why they pick it for the season finale, because usually you get quite an intense affair for the final rounds to decide who is going to be champion, to add a little bit extra spice to that possible title fight. There are the two cars that went off, and it was the 96, you're correct, of Peter Mott, the 98 of Hall. So both off into the gravel, but thankfully the live snatch is underway. And of course, that's in a position which did certainly require an appearance from the RunYourFleet.com Jaguar XF Sport Brake safety car. So the marshals are thankfully going to work. Big thank you to the marshals, of course, for all their hard work. But there is the safety car, RunYourFleet.com safety car, which is picking up the leader, Taylor O'Flanagan. So as you say, we get a bit of a breather before we go for the second half of this race. We've got roughly 8.25 minutes to go. So hopefully the live snatch can get it done, so we might possibly get a 4 or 5 minute shootout towards the end to decide who becomes the second winner of this second Caterham Roadsport race. So just to recap the order of how we're sitting at the moment then, Taylor O'Flanagan leads the way from Tom Cochrane in second place, Dominic Mansberger in third, so it is effectively the first three on the grid are in the same positions that they started in eventually. It's fourth place now still for the 97 of Gwyn Jones. Adam West is fifth, Alex Vincent still sixth after he started in sixth position, after he started the first race from the back of the grid after issues in qualifying and went from, what was it, 27th on the grid up to 6th, which is impressive even in those conditions. Hugo Bush 7th, he put another impressive drive and considering he started deep in the field. 8th for Lancaster, 9th for Chris Broome, and Nick Timpson, who was up as high as about 4th or 5th. Just in that shuffle in the last couple of moments before the safety car, Andy, just losing a few spots, of course, when he had that mistake at Redgate, which is the reason why he's down to 10th, but he had that mistake at Redgate, and that really cost him a spot in the lead pack. But although with the safety car, it gives him a bit of respite to try and get back in the mix when we get racing again.
Yeah, well-timed safety car, I think, for Nick Timpson here, just to regroup and clean the tyres off as well. It would have picked up quite a lot of gravel and dirt on his tyres from that trip through the weeds at Redgate Corner. So much to unpack here, isn't there? I mean, we've somehow, through all of that, Scott, ended up with O'Flanagan and Cockrell again, first and second, although they've actually, apart from in the first couple of laps of the race, not seen a huge amount of each other, because there's always been a car at least between them, that car more often than not being Dominic Mansberger, who's third. But Hugo Bush, from the back of the grid, he's now in 7th position. I suppose he probably wouldn't really have enjoyed seeing the safety car come out because he was making good headway anyway, but having done, in a way, the hard work and got to that lead group, what do you think? How far through it can he get? I mean, I semi-jokingly said a race win was on the cards. I mean, that's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it?
No, he was one of the top drivers last year in his particular academy group, and he was one of the ones that actually went up against Taylor O'Flanagan. So he knows what the likes of O'Flanagan and Mansberger can do in terms of racing capability and racecraft from their first season of racing. And he was someone who, he didn't manage a victory last year, but he was so close at times and just had the luck go against him, or the pace dropped off towards the back end. So there is a definite possibility that if he is able to pick his way through carefully, and let's face it, with this kind of close racing on a circuit like Donington in the dry, anything's possible. We've seen drivers who've come through. Well, the reason, for example, the reason why I call James Murphy, who's in the 7 UK race, I call him Superman, is because he had an issue in the first race. This is a couple of years at Thruxton in 2018. Came all the way from the back of the grid to about third, and that was crucial for his championship points to become champion that year. But the reason why he got Superman was also the fact when he got out of the car, he lay down on top of the roll cage and stuck his arm out like Superman, which is the reason why. So I always joke he needs a cape to go with that, so whenever he wins a race he can put it on and make the same pose. But anyway, to get back to it, Hugo Bush, I think he's definitely a contender. In fact, I think anyone, to be fair, in the top 10 is a contender for at least a strong podium finish. But yeah, Hugo Bush's pace, to be able to get that far up into the top 10 by this point in the race, even though we'll have a short sprint, there's a chance, but he'll need the luck to go against him, and also he'll need to really pick his moves carefully, considering that we've only got less than 5 minutes to go in this race when we get going again, because he won't have long to go. So it may only be a 2, if not 3 lap sprint, and there's going to be a few drivers in the mix who are certainly going to want to go for a result, particularly early on, to try and make sure they've got a good points haul to start off 2021. So it's going to be intense, but potentially he's got the chance, but it's going to be very tough with a limited time left.
Yeah, I mean, there is a chance we could go racing this time. I can see out of the window that the live snatch has pretty much been completed now. They've moved the first car out of the way. The second one is almost out of the way. So we might go racing this time. We've got 4.5 minutes left on the clock. So let's say that's going to be just less than 4 minutes by the time we get to the line.
And I suspect possibly the reason why the runyourfleet.com safety car is going a little bit slower is because it's trying to give them time to complete that second snatch so they can go racing this time, I suspect. So their purpose is going a little bit slower than it normally would so that we can then get a proper couple of laps in to get this first race of the day finished in reasonable time with a good pace to see who can come on top with the top 3 finishing positions.
Yes, indeed. Lots still to be decided in this second round of the Caterham 7 Roadsports Championship, the first of several Caterham races over the course of the day. And if they're all as entertaining as this one's been so far, we're in for a real treat. Right, I think the lights may have gone off on the safety car. When we next see that runyourfleet.com safety car, we'll be able to tell. It looks like O'Flanagan's backing the pack up, so I think we're going racing this time, which means we're going to have probably just in excess of 3 minutes left on the clock to decide this one. Yep, lights are out on the Jaguar, so we're ready to go racing once again, and it is going to be Taylor O'Flanagan with Tom Cockrell right on his tail. Keep an eye to Hugo Bush. He's the grey and orange number 22 car running in 7th place. He's the one that we've been talking about all race long, really. He's made this meteoric rise through the field. Already then, O'Flanagan has hit the loud pedal. He accelerates out of the Robert chicane, comes across the start-finish line with probably the biggest lead that anyone's had all race, and that's an enormous sort of 3 car lengths or so, or 0.4 of a second as they cross the line. The top 3 making a break here, though, Scott.
It looks as though everyone was kind of caught sleeping by the car in front because it's not as a close-up pack on the restart as I anticipated in that case. It seems as though that O'Flanagan went and everyone else kind of went, oh, we're restarting now, and kind of everyone's kind of very much spread out. It's not the typical restart that you'd see, but Cockrell's making sure that O'Flanagan is not getting away too far with the limited time we've got left. So down the crane occurs once again. This is on lap 11 of this second race for Roadsport, and Cockrell trying to throw the car in a little wider on the apex as he turned in through the right-hander, but they all funneled their way through, and I think with this restart having them slightly wider to get further apart is actually helping in terms of reducing the prospect for any incidents from drivers trying to make their way through and make any moves. Top 3 again up into McLean's in. O'Flanagan sliding a little bit with a tighter apex there for Cockrell through McLean's. Now he gets the good run up towards Coppice, but if he can hold there and get a good drive off the next right-hander, he'll certainly have good traction and a really good slipstream to possibly make a move into the Robert chicane with just over 2 minutes to go. There's Alex Vincent, who is currently back in 6th position ahead of Hugo Bush, and maybe we talked about too much. Hugo Bush, he's not really made the restart we or he hoped he was going to make. What's happening though is 3 abreast for the lead as they come down towards the Robert chicane now, and looks like Cockrell's been the last of the late breakers into the chicane, gets very sideways on the exit, and now O'Flanagan's going to get mixed. And also watch for Gwyn Jones in the red and black car. It is 4 of them for the lead down the straight, side by side possibly, as it could be 4 abreast down towards it. Gwyn Jones takes ironically the fastest lap of the race apparently on that one, so 1 minute 22.084. Also joining the mix is Adam West, so he might be a factor as well. We're going to get, I think, possibly this and 1 more lap to go as now O'Flanagan goes round the outside at Redgate corner and just about holds on, gets the momentum down the hill through Hollywood. 2 was on the grass from Mansberger, 3 abreast through the curves. That shouldn't work, and it somehow has. O'Flanagan back to the lead, side by side for second between Mansberger and Tom Cockrell, and also look at Adam West attacking Gwyn Jones. Cockrell a little wide there as he lets Mansberger go into second place. Talk about intense. 1 minute and 10 seconds to go, and it has kicked off for the victory already in this first race.
Remember how wonderfully spread out they were at the restart. That was only a lap ago, and then cut to a lap later, and they're 3 wide through the crane curves for the lead. It is O'Flanagan with the advantage then. Mansberger second, Cockrell third, then it will be Gwyn Jones in 4th position, and I think they've got a 5th car in this group as well now, which must be Adam West. Through Coppice corner they go down the exhibition straight. Yes, there is Gwyn Jones, and then behind him is Batman, yeah, Adam West in 5th position, and then 6th and 7th aren't that far back either, Vincent and Bush. If they work together here, they could be a part of this as we are about to start the final lap of what has been a scintillating opening race of the day. Into the chicane they go for the penultimate time. It's O'Flanagan with the lead, Mansberger second, Cockrell third. Will that be the order in 1.9 miles time? Almost certainly not. Across the line they go, down to Redgate corner, one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit. Hugo Bush up into 6th place, by the way, now, has set the fastest lap of the race. Battle on for second, Cockrell to the outside, Mansberger to the inside. Almost got into the back of the race leader there, did Mansberger, and then he just eases Tom Cockrell wide over the curb, and they have to settle back in single file, so no change in the positions through the first corner. Now the next overtaking opportunity is down at the old hairpin, although if you're Tom Cockrell, you can try and move in the middle of the crane of curves, apparently. Pulls up alongside
Mansberger for second. He can't get the job done though, and that actually compromises them both as they turn into the right-hander at the bottom of the hill. Further back, plenty of battles going on still. Chris Broom, I saw there, was battling away with the number 4 of Nick Timpson, whose race really did unravel when he had that trip through the gravel at Redgate Corner. Leaders at McLean's though, and they're 3 wide, and O'Flanagan's in the gravel. Taylor O'Flanagan is in the gravel at McLean's Corner, and he'll drop 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 positions by the time they reach Coppice. That was an absolute disaster. Cockrell and Mansberger went up the inside of him, and Taylor O'Flanagan got eased out into the gravel trap, and that has cost him a shot at the victory. But there are still 4 cars covered by a very small margin as they head down the back straight for the final time. Cockrell has the lead. He's got the inside line for the chicane into the final 2 corners. Mansberger, and charging around the outside, is that Hugo Bush? I think it was. Through the gravel goes Hugo Bush. He had a shot at the win. It hasn't quite worked out. The drag to the line begins, and Tom Cockrell punches the air in delight. He wins the opening race of the day. Dominique Mansberger second, Gwyn Jones is third. O'Flanagan recovers to 4th there after Hugo Bush's adventures at the final corner. Adam West is 5th. Bush ends up 6th. That's a bit of a shame really, because he did have a shot at a podium, and I think he got a bit carried away there and tried to go for the win, and it didn't really work. Adam Vincent will be 8th position then, sorry, for Chris Broom. 9th Nick Timpson, and 10th position will be Mariadis, Adrian Mariadis. Further back, still more battling going on. This is the 88 car of Michael Koo, and he is trying to hang on to 21st place, which he does, just about ahead of, no sorry, he lost 20th place, that was actually, it was Arnold that went through into 20th on the line. Well, if that sets the tone for the rest of the day, then we're in for a treat, aren't we? We've got plenty more Caterham racing coming your way throughout the day, but that was an absolutely brilliant, a typical Caterham Donington slipstreamer there, where the result was in doubt right until the final few metres. I mean, if the start-finish line had been another 100 metres down the road, Dominique Mansberger may even have had half a chance of drafting his way past Tom Cockrell at the line. So that was, yeah, truly brilliant racing, and the Roadsports Championship is set to be, I think, extremely competitive this year. Confirmation on your screens then of the result is Tom Cockrell with the win, Dominique Mansberger second, Gwyn Jones third, Taylor O'Flanagan 4th, with Adam West and Hugo Bush 5th and 6th, the top 6 covered by 1 second essentially at the end of the 20 minutes. Alex Vincent was 7th, Chris Broom was 8th, Nick Timpson 9th, and Mariadis was 10th, with Steve Lancaster, Andy Lund, Kevin Turner, Ron Mounsey and Mike Hilton next. Ian Hapgood, Marcus Eels, Ryan Lovett, Chris Griffith and Simon Arnold round out the top 20. Arnold, of course, took that 20th place away from Michael Koo literally as they crossed the line. So Michael Koo ends up 21st, Andrew Bergbaum is 22nd, and Mark Firth 23rd. Peter Mott and James Hall, the only 2 retirements after their tangle up at McLean's midway through the race, which brought out the safety car. Right then, I need to lie down after that, and we've still got plenty more races to go. It's a total of 12 races today, 11 more still to go. We've got 4 more races before lunch. Next up we have more Caterham action, you'll be happy to hear, from the flagship championships, essentially. The top 2 tiers of the Caterham Motorsport ladder are about to head out. The Caterham 7 UK Championship, which is the pinnacle of Caterham racing in the UK, and the 310R Championship sharing the grid with them. They're up next. Then we have single-seater action from the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship. That race due to start at about 12:05. The final Caterham race of the morning, at least, is the Caterham 7 270R Championship, which doesn't actually take place in the morning. It's 12:35 the start time, but you get what I mean, the final Caterham race before lunch, because that's then followed by the Ford Modified Series with their first 15-minute race of the day. And some of the cars on that Ford Modified Series grid are indecently sexy. I was looking at them out in qualifying earlier on, and yeah, drool-worthy cars out on that grid for the pair of Ford Modified races today. So that's how the morning programme looks. I think we can pretty much guarantee you a good day of racing, especially if the weather continues as it is at the moment. The sun is still shining, there's relatively little cloud in the sky, so hopeful that we're going to see more of that kind of racing that we just enjoyed from the Caterham Roadsports. And there you can see down in Parc Fermé, the drivers are making their way in. Momentarily we'll be able to have a word with our top 3 finishers. Scott Woodwiss has vacated the commentary box and made the first of many trips down to Parc Fermé. I must thank Scott for jumping in and doing all of the interviews. I've been in the wars a bit this week myself, so I didn't quite fancy the trip down to that end of the pit lane. So Scott's going to be on interview duty, and I can see him ready and raring to go. So let's have a word with our podium finishers.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, we're going to have a chat to our top three. That was an incredibly intense race to kick things off for this morning's racing. We're going to see if we can have a chat if we can find our winner, Tom Cockrell. Appears to have disappeared for the moment. But if we can, we'll at least have a chat with... I think we've got Tom here, actually. In fact, we'll have a quick chat to him here. So... just I think he's trying to get his mask in place before he has the interview, of course, with all the COVID restrictions. Tom, wow, that was intense. You don't need me to tell you that, but particularly with the final lap. But I guess the first thing I have to ask is what went through your mind when Taylor went skating into the gravel?
I didn't actually see it. He was the other side of Dom. So I know we went in hot, and I was looking up the inside, and then came out, and Dom was behind me. I don't know what happened to Taylor. I didn't see it. I don't know. And then the last chicane, I'm sure it's Hugo was coming from nowhere around the outside. It's just, man, it's intense. That's what Caterham Racing's about, right?
Yeah. But you've now got one apiece now between yourself and Taylor, so this is really going to be a battle of the Academy champions, isn't it?
Yeah, plus Dom, Hugo, Gwyn, Vinny, Adam West from Academy of previous. There's going to be a lot of us. It's going to be an intense year.
Basically half the grid.
Yeah, which is why we're all here, right?
So you can now go to Knockhill with a lot of confidence. You pace that's good in the dry in many cases, you could stay with them. So you're looking forward to a trip to Scotland?
Absolutely. I'm half Scottish, so you know it's going home apparently. No, it'll be good. I think it's a fresh track for everyone. So it's going to be interesting, intense, fun, and hopefully I'll be on top again.
Tartan gave it away as well.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Well done. Congratulations.
Cheers.
Let's see if we can find Dominic Mansberger, wherever he's headed off to. Dominic's over here, so I'll have a chat to our second place man, our resident German. Dominic, what a race that was. That was incredible stuff between you and Tom and Taylor and everyone else. That was some great racing, and particularly that last chicane as well. That was mental.
Yeah, definitely. That was quite tricky. I saw Hugo flying through the gravel, so I didn't know where he come out of the gravel. But anyway, you can only go on the throttle and hope that it goes well. And yeah, it did. But it was a close race, like I expected it, with all the other guys joining us in the dry.
And of course, that's going to give you confidence both in wet and dry. You can still keep with these guys with the upgraded package, so that's going to give you some confidence to go for the championship this year.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Because in the dry in the last year, I struggled sometimes a bit. So this was definitely a good sign for the rest of the season.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations. We'll see you at Knockhill, and best of luck for them.
Thanks.
Good stuff. We're going to have a chat with Gwyn Jones as well in third place. We'll bring Gwyn over here. Gwyn, I think maybe going to the final lap, looking at it, you might have not 100% expected to be in third place, but that was an incredible last lap.
Oh, that was mental. It was absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Oh, yeah, absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. I can't, absolutely buzzing after that. I didn't expect to be on the podium, so that's a mega bonus. Really happy with that.
And your pacing has been good both in wet and dry this weekend, so that's going to give you massive confidence for the next few races ahead.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Going up to Knockhill next, so it'll be snowing up there, so see what my snow pace is. But yeah, very, very pleased with that.
You won a race already, so you know how to do it. So you can certainly give these guys a run and see if you can get to the top.
Best. They're pretty quick, these top guys. So I'll try. If I can just hang on their coattails, I'll be very, very happy.
Well deserved third place. Go and rest up. We'll see you at Knockhill.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Well, don't go anywhere because there's more Caterham action still to come. That was the Roadsport category. Now we've got the two fastest championships in action with the Caterham 7 UKs and Caterham 7 310Rs up on track. That's going to be some of the fastest racing you'll see all weekend. Andy, back to you.